I'm Miss Walker. Okay, so today we're going to take a quiz. So we have a quiz that's going on today, and it's going to cover pretty much everything that we've done for the year. So on this quiz, I'm going to go through our success criteria to make sure that you have a nice little reminder before we do the quiz, okay? So the first thing we did when we first came back was we did some lab safety. So you want to make sure that you can identify different rules and that we should be able to follow, that we have to follow when we're in a science lab, okay? You also want to make sure that if I was to give you a scenario, that you will be able to tell me what rule was broken. And if you remember, we did this with our lab safety read and apply that we did on the Chromebooks. Okay, so if you did good on that assignment, then I feel like you'll be all right on that portion of the quiz. The next thing we got into was scientific method. All right, and that was those series of steps that we take as scientists and just in everyday life to be able to find out the answer to a question. Okay, so you want to remember the first step, we needed to identify the problem. The second step, look up some information. So you know that you had a problem, you want to get some type of background knowledge, then you'll make your own hypothesis. That's going to be your prediction on what you think the outcome of the experiment is going to be. The next part, test your hypothesis. Okay, you're going to experiment, and while you're doing that, you're going to be collecting data. Okay, and that data is going to be, it can be numeric, or it can be like a quality. Okay, your data does not always make sure, it's not always going to be a number. It could be that you're taking pictures. It could be that you're rating the quality of whatever it is that you're checking out. Okay, and then after we take our data, we're going to use that to help us to form our conclusion. All right, so was your hypothesis correct or incorrect? All right, and you want to state that and use your data to back it up. That's kind of like what we do with RACER. We use our evidence to back it up. Okay, so you're going to use your data for that. And then the last thing, as scientists, we love to communicate. So you want to make sure that you're communicating those results. You can use graphs, you can use charts, you may just write it out in a paper, whatever it is. That communication is a very important part to the scientific method because that is how we learn new things in science. We published our findings, and then now more people can have access to that knowledge. Okay, so then the last thing that we went through when we were doing in this unit is the characteristics of life. We wanted to decide if something was biotic or abiotic, so we had to figure out what characteristics actually make something living. And so I'll go through our characteristics. In order to be living, you have to be able to respond to the environment. So if I was to hit a ruler on the table, someone's going to jump. That is a response. That ruler, the sound, was our stimulus. Okay? So that's the first. Respond to the environment or respond to some type of change. Okay? The second one, reproduce. Living things have to be able to reproduce or else everything would be extinct by now. All right? It has to be made of cells. So if you are a living thing, you must be made of the smallest unit of life, which is cells. And inside of those cells, you have DNA. DNA is another characteristic of living things that has your genetic material. That's what makes you you. Then living things, I don't know about y'all, but I get hungry. So living things have to be able to obtain and use energy, okay? That energy is going to help us to function, doing our daily functions, helping us to grow and different things like that. Okay, so then lastly, living things have to grow and develop. So if you think about it, if you have a seed, that seed isn't going, you plant it, it's not going to be the same its whole life. It starts off as one stage and then it grows and it develops into something else. It may develop into what we call a little seedling where it's very, very small. And then eventually it may be a big old tree, okay? So you want to keep those things in mind when you're talking about, when you're trying to classify whether something is biotic, which is living, or abiotic, which is non-living. Okay, and I'll go through the characteristics of life one more time. Number one, sense and respond to change. Number two, reproduce. Number 3 is going to obtain and use energy. Number 4, made of cells. 5, DNA. And then 6, grow and develop. Okay? So now we're about to take our quiz. Then after our quiz, we're going to watch a Bill Nye.
Bill Nye the Science Guy.